And I hope we're live. I think we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Dieter Staudinger here. Fearless Flight. It's our weekly live show for anyone who is nervous or afraid to fly, or anyone who is interested in aviation news. And today we're missing Captain Ron again, but we got a treat. We got Flight Attendant Diane and Captain Eric in the same Hollywood square. So the $1,000,000 question, as it is in Hollywood, I guess, where are you guys?
Well, Dieter's just being smug. He has melded our image onto one frame, and he's quite proud of himself. And Captain Ron was trying to come on, but he was in LA, and he was number 17 to go for one seat, non-revving home, and he gave up. He had that made, but he gave it up.
No, he never would. Not even close.
Yeah. So we're in this one frame now to save power and bandwidth. But we're still here to answer questions and anything you guys want to talk about, we can talk about. And we have some stuff to bring up if you're all of a sudden are bashful.
Yeah. So, well, I will say you guys look great together. So, we have a couple of really great questions tonight about thunderstorms, about brace position, and de-icing. I want to give a quick update on Captain Ron. Yeah, Captain Eric. Yeah, Ron was just on about 5 minutes and realized that the airport Wi-Fi, and I think he was in Los Angeles, right? LAX at the time?
Yes.
Wasn't solid enough to stay on for any meaningful period of time. So he actually was flying with an elite custom coaching client to Cabo, and we call him Captain Ron's Cabo runs. And so he flew down with Tanya Owens, and hopefully she'll be on when she returns from Cabo, and then we'll get to hear her experience and obviously Captain Ron's as well. In the meantime, if you haven't joined yet, we have a Facebook group. It's called Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather. And right now it's about 1,100 members strong. And there's always some helpful posts, or if you want to get your questions answered there or support for an upcoming flight, this is a great supportive, nurturing place to ask your questions or share your experiences. And I want to do a quick shout out to Tom. Tom was, I think, let me just see this here. Tom, great. Oh, and Jim Duke. Jim Duke, actually, he gave a shout out to all the ground personnel, because Jim's actually, I think, in transit right now. He's in Boston and going on a cruise, and I think he'll even make it all the way to Canada on his cruise to Newfoundland. So, and he posted a great shot of the aircraft that he was on, and just a shout out to all the ground personnel. How was that for you guys? How was your flight? Where did you fly from? And where are you currently? And was it eventful or not?
No, we came out of Phoenix very early this morning, and we're operating on zero sleep. I asked Dieter if I had 3 lips, and I was sticking my tongue out earlier to see if I had 4 because I'm that tired.
And I have a lot of makeup on too.
And we left at 5:30 and flew to Houston Hobby, which is a super nice airport. It's almost Southwest private airport, so the stuff flows through there really fast.
Very quickly.
And now we're in Cozumel, Mexico, and I was going to show you a really nice sunset in the background, but the sun already set and now it's dark. So
it's very dark.
We don't have a sunset to show you. But no, we were just hanging forward in the straps. I mean, sleeping or comatose most of the way here, and not that much sharper right now.
But the flights were good. Our plane from Phoenix to Houston was probably 75% full.
Yeah.
Maybe about 75% of capacity. And the flight from Houston here at Cozumel was packed, was full.
But we were 30 minutes early,
Yeah.
and the customs guys blew us
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, very fast, very fast.
And the customs dog wanted to sniff my backpack, but fortunately all I had was dive computers and stuff in there and nothing with peanut butter on it, so he didn't care.
But I had some Southwest snacks in my bag, and they passed by okay. So yeah, and
Yeah, they know Southwest snacks.
yeah, they know all the Southwest snacks. Yeah, for sure. It's very nice here, but it's real sticky, very humid. Not like air at all, but very nice.
Oh, that's a perfect lead-in actually for the first question that someone messaged, and it has to do with thunderstorms. And so the question is, there's actually two questions in that, and the first one is, I'm just paraphrasing here, that person has been watching the show for a while, so they know that we generally don't fly into thunderstorms. But how come when you are flying, how come it looks like the thunderstorm is right on top of you or right next to you? So that's question number one. And then question number two, because of what airplanes are made out of, are planes getting hit frequently by lightning? And if so, are there any effects on the plane? And would you even know that? Yeah, so those are the two questions.
Question one, when you're looking out the window at the weather, the distances are very, very deceptive. And you're in extremely clear air, so you can see great distances that you can't see unencumbered on the ground. But if there is a lot of activity, you may be deviating around what we call individual cells and cells of thunderstorms, areas of vertical activity. So you may be closer to some than you are others. And in general, well, we know what the winds are exactly at our altitude from our inertial systems. Mm-hmm. And if we're upwind of a thunderstorm, so all the hail and rain and drama is blowing downwind of us, we can go fairly close to that with impunity and knowing we're going to have a smooth ride. But if we have to deviate downwind of a thunderstorm, we generally give it a very wide berth because of the rain and hail that could be pitched off of there. So if it looks like you're close, well, maybe you are, but you're highly likely upwind, and there's a reason to be close because of another cell on the other side that you're trying to give a wider berth. And question two is not frequently, but sometimes the airplanes get hit with lightning, and they're very good at functioning even after hits. And if you look at the back of the wings and the back of the rudder and horizontal stabilizer, if you can ever see those clearly from the terminal windows, they're little 6-inch long yellow plastic wicks with wires sticking out of the sides of them, and those are static dissipators. And the very purpose of those is in case the airplane gets hit, to dissipate that energy off the back of the airplane or the airfoil surfaces without damaging the airplane.
We have 9 of those on our planes on each side.
Oh man, she counted them. I don't think I ever counted them on either airplane that I was.
We have 9. We have 9 static.
She got 9 of them
on each wing on my aircraft.
Now, if you have bad luck and you absolutely get drilled, it's possible to get enough charge to blow those off the back of the tail of the wing. But still, the airplane will sail along fine. In extreme times in my 30 plus years, once in a while I would see an airplane that got hit hard enough, and what would happen is the charge would then escape the surface of the wing or surface of the stabilizers, and when it would do that, it would make a little teeny hole like somebody had shot it with a BB gun, which would affect it not at all. But if the mechanics got a hold of the pilots, it would affect them like they would probably not have another birthday if they got their hands around their neck. But the airplane would need to at some point soon be reskinned, have that area patched, that kind of thing. But it would do skin damage in extreme cases. But that's very, very rare.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Actually, Don has a couple of questions. He's asking, can you remind him how do planes avoid birds? That's the first question. And how likely are bird strikes to cause engine failures? So and I don't need you to kind of play the odds here, but when we talk about these questions, I just want to, before you answer them, just like Captain Eric said in the previous, answering the previous question, just because we are talking about these questions and have answers for these questions doesn't mean that they are going to be your experience on your next flight. Far from it, because of, I think, well, I don't know if you actually remember the numbers or not, but bird strikes, they do happen. But what do planes do to avoid bird strikes, and what happens usually when bird strikes impact a plane?
That's a whole art form engaged in by the airlines, the airports, the FAA. They're very good at removing bird-friendly things from the immediate airport environment. They have multiple bird scaring off techniques with loud bangs, sirens, or they'll make recordings of predatory, like falcons screaming and that kind of thing to scare them off. So there's an extreme effort made to keep birds away from the airport and the airplane, and accepting the U.S. Air experience with Captain Sully. It's unusual to impact large numbers like that. I mean, that was as we say, a one-off. That happened. But sometimes there are single individual strikes en route, and we'll inspect the engines for feathers. You can kind of hear a weird thump, or you'll inspect the wing carefully if you heard it. And I'm joking about this, but it's serious. It's funny. If you think you hit it in the engine and there was a thump, the engine will steadily run just fine. But the pilots, we would both say, okay, we'll count to 3 really slowly, and then inhale as deeply as possible. And if it went to the engine core, you could look at each other and go, okay, I smell the slightest bouquet of Cajun cooked grackle. And you get it for just a fraction of a second. You go, yeah, he went through the engine core at 600 Celsius and got a blackened finish and was shot out the back. And that way, at least that you can tell the mechanic, yes, we hit him. Yes, he went through the engine core. And that way you'll know, but it's just a hint of it. And there's no engine interruption. That's your only clue is if you can get the slightest whiff of the thing that it went through the engine. Otherwise, if you hear that thump, you have to look at the wing surface.
Okay, cool. And and then there's a practical question. Is there less turbulence if one flies in the morning? And without knowing more about anything else, that's
our
yes,
short
right?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the
Okay.
Earth has been cool and no sun exposure, starting thermaling and everything early, and so the atmosphere is generally much more stable then. So generally those are better rides.
Yes.
All right, cool. I saw a video being yes, Heather, I've seen that video too. Heather wrote, I saw a video of plane engines being tested by catapulting frozen chickens into them. I know, I've actually seen that too, and I was like, oh man.
I know.
You go, in the one hand, you go, these nerds are completely out of control, blowing up these engines for nothing. It's just incredibly stupid. But what they're really doing is saying, okay, what's the worst that can happen is a big bird, a hawk, an eagle, a falcon, a predatory bird can get sucked into the bottom of the thunderstorm in the updraft because they're not using radar. They get sucked into the bottom of the thunderstorm in the updraft, frozen, and shot out of the top of the cloud. It's possible that you could take a frozen bird to the engine. You would be an extremely unlucky person to have that happen. But it's within it's like sitting there flipping a quarter at your desk. Eventually it might land on the edge. It's I got an edge. It's not heads or tails, but it's almost, to quote my second favorite movie, Princess Bride, it's almost inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
But they shoot it to the engines anyway to see what would happen.
But that one sitting on the tarmac.
I have no
All
idea.
right, so the tarmac question, I can jump in there. Why would somebody be kept on the tarmac for a couple hours? I'm gonna let the reasons be answered by you guys, but I do know that as per the FAA, you can only sit on a tarmac for 3 hours before very bad things happen to you. And I think if you're an airline and not let the people out, I mean. And I think that article that Susan, I think, was referencing, the way or at least that one article that I read, the way they made it sound by way of the headline is that people sat in the same plane for 6 hours continuously, which did not happen. What did happen is they sat in 2 different planes for almost 3 hours each time. The first time with a little bit of air conditioning. The second time, I don't think there was any. And so that's how this actually happened. But I'm gonna throw it back to you guys. What could be reasons why be more than an hour or more than, like that seems already significant, an hour.
Yeah.
All I can throw out is, I saw that too.
Yeah, me too.
Is that the airline intended not to keep them prisoner, but when they pushed back in the second airplane, they thought they would go.
Right.
They thought they would go fairly quickly. As to the no air conditioning thing, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the guys staying out there like that.
For that length of time. But one thing you said, so many times when I've been on a plane, we've pushed back or something, or even you think you're going to go, you think whatever it is going to get fixed. If there's a mechanical issue, then it's like, oh, it should only take whatever, and then it should only take a little bit longer, and then the mechanic can't get here, and we're going to go any minute, or if it's weather related, we're going to go because the weather's going to clear up wherever we're going or whatever the route is. And then it doesn't. And there's always that hope that eventually you'll be able to depart.
So Diane, as flight attendants, is it that more often than not, you guys are actually telling us the truth in the back of the cabin that, oh, it's just this, as we
understand it, we're, as you said, we're in the back in the cabin, and so we don't know what the discussion is going on up in the flight deck with the pilots and mechanics and operations in the company. Mm-hmm. So as they find out information, they will relay it to us. Okay. But sometimes they're not quite clear either. I mean, if they're waiting on a mechanic to show up. We had one flight, we had something that was broken in Yuma. Yuma is not a maintenance base for us. They had to drive a mechanic down from Phoenix to Yuma, Arizona with the part. So, and of course that flight was canceled, obviously, but mm-hmm. there are very strange and not convenient things that happen that are beyond everybody's control. Deplaning a plane is not necessarily as easy and simple as you would think. It's pulling back to the gate. You have to get people off. You have to decide what they're going to do. Sometimes you land, it's really, really late. All the rampers have gone home. There's just a constellation of things that can happen that can cause those kinds of things. But everybody tries their best. But with the air conditioning thing, I have no idea on that one.
I don't either. It sounds terrible, and if that's really what happened, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I have no conjecture as to why.
I have no idea.
All right, so let's go to the brace question. So I got a question in from someone who probably is a very smart person and is wondering, in all the documentation in the aircraft and also the way that often the flight attendants explain is the brace position. And the question was, how is that the safest position when I'm only about an inch away from the seat in front of me, and I'm also trying to my neck basically like Captain Eric. I think they call it the nap position there. How is that a safe position, and why would we want to assume that this is the best position to get in when there's
you're trying to avoid as much motion, ballistic motion. And so if there is an emergency situation where there's going to be a rapid deceleration, if your body is back against the seat, you're going to be thrown forward, which is very dangerous. And so if you're already forward and you are as compact as you can possibly be, then the amount of forward motion instantaneously is much, much reduced. And if you're already forward, just that little bit of motion between your head and the seat in front of you is not going to be not going to create a problem. But if you were already in the back of your seat and you were thrown forward, then that impact would be considerable. And so you want to minimize that forward motion. You also want to be as compact, as close together, which provides you that safety net of protecting your abdominal cavity when you're forward. So you're protecting all of those parts. So there's a lot of physics involved in what is the safest position for that.
That's interesting because
that's really good.
Yeah. I'll share my experience from 2008. We were landing in Antarctica on a snow runway at the German base. So we were flying from the Russian air base, which is kind of like the hub coming from South Africa. And then from there with a DC-3 on to the German research station. For some reason, one of their, what do you call these things? They look like tanks, quite honestly, but they're tanks, but they do have these, they don't even push the snow away. They just literally flatten it, because through the wind, these little formations happen. They're called sastrugi. And so they're like frozen waves. They kind of look like that. And they also wander, not quite like sand dunes. They actually wander with the wind, not against the wind. And it is really cool, except the pilot told us that, we had to, assume the brace position. And he was making a joke, and he said, yeah, you know what, it's really for your benefit, just in case we hit one of those sastrugis, and one of the skis can get, sometimes a little iffy, and it ended up nothing really of note and was fine. But the way you were describing it makes perfect sense, because he said, well, you want to kind of lean into your seatbelt, or at least you want to feel slight tension. That's what I always remember, is that make sure that you feel slight tension that there's no slack in your seatbelt, and so
And
that makes sense.
that's really important, that people have a tendency, as we're going up and on the aisle looking at our passengers to make sure their seatbelts are fastened, they've got them real loose, and they're kind of, especially if the children, and they're kind of hanging there. And so you say, is your seat, oh, I have my seatbelt fastened. And it's very loose. And if there was an emergency situation, they could slip or slide, depending, particularly if it's a child, they can slide right out from underneath the seatbelt. And so it is important to have that snug down. You don't have to cut off your circulation, but it's important to have that securely fastened, your seatbelt. I mean, with the flight attendants, when we're in our jump seats, we have seatbelts, but we have shoulder harnesses. So we are completely secured in our seats. And so, because it's like being a lifeguard, we need to make sure that we are safe in order to be able to assist all of the passengers. So our combination of seatbelt and shoulder harness really keeps us strapped. We put the plane on us, the plane is strapped to us to be as safe and secure as possible.
Cool. All right. I don't see any questions here, or at least not right now in the chat. So maybe one more quick question. And that is actually, it was kind of like asked in jest, but what could be reasons why a plane would be going through a de-icer in a summertime? So somebody was just wondering why would there be de-icing going on in the summer when
it can be summertime, but depending on the temperature range and humidity, it's possible you could get some ice formation on the wings. And the way that would occur, one of the ways that would occur is if during fueling, fuel is being pumped out of the ground from real cold storage tanks into the wing, and the humidity was high, that real cold fuel and the aluminum wing can produce all kinds of condensation on the airplane wings. And that has to be removed. Even if it's not a snow or ice storm, it's ice on the wings and it's got to come off. And other times where it's like, yeah, it's kind of summery, it's a nice day, but there was frost or high humidity, that has to come off too. So those are not the rule, but they're exceptions, and they can occur that way.
So it can happen, is what you're saying. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for jumping in there from Cozumel. I'm really, it's great. And you know what? I'm actually enjoying this. One time, I think we're all gonna be in one other location together, and I haven't quite given up on this Hawaii thing yet. So for anybody who's still wondering what happened with that, well, we'll get Captain Ron on here the show eventually, hopefully next week, and we'll talk again about the idea of having a longer 301 flight, either from Phoenix or Los Angeles to Hawaii, and then it's optional to stay, or you can fly back. But I think the idea is that we'll stay there for a week or so, or for a few days. And we will get at least some kind of a questionnaire together. And hopefully we'll make that happen. So, but in the meantime, thank you, Captain Eric. Thank you, Diane, for being on. Any last words?
Well, we'll be here next Tuesday. And if the sun happens to set like an hour and a half later, then we can show you a really cool sunset out the window. Otherwise, all we can show you is what happens after the sunset when it's just dark.
Well, I did pay attention in geography a little bit, so I'm not so sure that that'll happen.
Hopeful thing.
No.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Shally and Susan and Jim. Jim, enjoy your cruise, and love to see some pictures in the Birds of a Feather Facebook group. Lane, hi Lane. there are lots of people on. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here next week, Tuesday, 6:30 Pacific. All right.